All right, so first we're going to look at the functions and measures of money. So I'm actually going to break this section into two separate videos. But first we're going to look at the functions of money. Then we're going to look at how money is measured, specifically how the supply of money is measured. All right, so to begin with, what is money? Of course, you guys know what money is, but what are its key characteristics is really what we're looking at here. So money is any medium or anything that is universally accepted in an economy by both sellers of goods and services as payments for those goods and services, as well as by creditors as payments for debt. So here is a list of some examples of money throughout history. So humans have used all kinds of interesting things as forms of money, including things like boar tusks, feathers, pots, rum, tobacco, silver, probably I'm sure that's not too surprising for y'all, whale teeth. Okay, lots of interesting things used as money. And all money has certain functions that it has to provide. So medium of exchange is the one that we are all familiar with. We use money all the time as a medium of exchange. When you buy anything with the money that you have, you're using it as a medium of exchange. But that's not the only function that money serves. It also, one function that it serves is also a unit of account. So accounting, when when businesses calculate their profits and costs and different financial measurements, they're using dollars as a way to account for those measurements. So that's a unit of accounting. It's also used as a store of value, right? So when you save your money, when you put your money in the bank to use later, it's acting as a store of value. And then it also acts as a standard of deferred payment. In other words, it acts as a standard of calculating and measuring debt and loans. Okay, so medium of exchange, this is the one we are familiar with. Anytime sellers accept something as payment, that thing is being utilized as a medium of exchange. Now, money isn't the only thing that can be used as a medium of exchange. We'll talk about barter in a second, but money is commonly used as a medium of exchange because it has a low transactions cost to it. So basically, it facilitates things like efficiency. It permits specialization. And we'll talk about why in a second. And we can see how it does these things when contrasting it to barter, which is the trade of goods and services for other goods and services rather than money. So this would be like if I went to the barber and got asked for a haircut, and I offered in exchange some econ lessons. That would be barter because the exchange taking place does not involve money. It's an exchange of goods and services for other goods and services. But the problem with barter is that it requires what's called a double coincidence of wants, right? It would require that the barber wanted economics lessons, okay? Which probably isn't the case, right? The barber wants money. Everybody wants money, so trading with money is usually not a problem. It eliminates the double coincidence of wants, although not really. I mean, strictly speaking, there's still a double coincidence of wants when you trade with money, but everybody wants money, right? Because they can use it to trade for other things that they want, right? But basically, with barter, there's really this problem of double coincidence of wants because my barber probably doesn't want an econ lesson. And so that's a transaction cost, basically. Money eliminates that. As far as a unit of accounting, This is just any time a measurement of value is expressed in dollars or whatever currency or money. So when you go to the store and you see prices expressed in dollars, that's technically a unit of account. Another way to think of it is it's the common denominator in a price system. So this is actually one of the central properties of money. This is why money was invented, in fact, was because of the need for these accounting principles. Because it used to be a long time ago that, if you were trading with someone before money existed, you had to be bartering. If you lent anything to someone, you couldn't express it in dollars. You'd have to be like, oh, so-and-so owes me 7 goats, 2 chickens, 3 horses, and a boar. But now, rather than doing that, you can just say, well, so-and-so owes me X amount of dollars, right? So that's kind of what gave birth to a need for money, historically speaking. All right, thinking about this behavioral example, is money really just for record keeping? So economists have conducted experiments in which individuals could either use electronic tokens, or they could use a recording keeping system for exchange. And the experiments show that money's role as a medium of exchange is actually more important than its role in enabling people to keep records of transactions. So, and maybe that's not surprising, right? Especially given today's society and the way that we purchase things. All right, money also functions as a store of value, right? Which is just a way to store value over time, right? So this is, again, when you put your money in the bank so that you can use it as a medium of exchange at some later time. Now, this is a necessary property of money. Without it, without this function, it can't really be money. So, for example, leaves of lettuce, right, could never be money because they rot and deteriorate and go away. There's no way for it to act as a store of value. And so, in fact, if we went back to this list of different types of things that have been money, you can see that most of them are things that don't, in fact, I think all of them are things that don't degrade and deteriorate, except for maybe corn, although maybe that's like dried corn, right? But basically all of these things can be stored for long periods of time. All right, and then the last one, standard of deferred payment. This is just a property that of something that makes it desirable for use as a means of settling debts in the future. And this is another essential property of money, right? If you can't pay a debt with it, then it really isn't money. All right, so when we talk about money, we also will sometimes want to talk about something called liquidity. And this is just the degree to which an asset can be acquired or disposed of without much danger of intervening a loss in its nominal value and with a small transaction cost. Or another way to think of it is, how easily can something, an asset, be converted into cash, right? So something like a house is not very liquid. It takes a long time in some cases and involves high transaction costs to convert a house into cash or into money. So houses are not very liquid, cars are not very liquid, but a check or a checking account is very liquid. It's very easy to turn funds in a checking account into money. Let's see, what else? Traveler's checks are very liquid. Stocks are pretty liquid. Stocks in the stock exchange are pretty liquid. But money is the most liquid asset because money is money already. So, all right. What if a type of asset that previously had been regularly exchanged in active trading suddenly experiences a long period of hardly any transactions? So when those assets artwork, for example, fall out of favor, their trading flows decline considerably, and as a result, those assets become highly illiquid, right? So if they are not traded frequently, then they become less liquid. It's harder to convert them into money. All right, so here's some different things and their degrees of liquidity. So you have low liquidity over here, antique military hardware, right? Those things are not being traded very frequently. If you had a piece of antique military hardware, it would be pretty hard to convert it into cash. Commercial office buildings, old masters paintings, like paintings from, oh, I don't know, gosh, why am I having a brain fart? Picasso, right? Some of those masters from the 17 and 1800s. I mentioned houses and cars, right? So a little bit more liquid than these old masters paintings or antique military hardware. Stocks and bonds are pretty liquid. CDs, certificates of deposit, are pretty liquid. If you have one of these and you want to convert it into cash, you can pretty easily usually, and only have to incur typically a very small transaction cost. Transactions deposits, which are basically like checking accounts, and of course currency and coins are the most liquid. What is the cost of holding money? That's a good question. Is there a cost to holding money, just holding onto it, maybe storing it under your mattress, for example? Well, as it turns out, there is a cost of holding your money. There's an opportunity cost of holding your money, because if you took that money that you just kept in your pocket or in your wallet or under a mattress, you could put it into something that yields some amount of interest, which is a payment back to you for putting that money into an investment. So, the simplest example is a savings account that pays you some interest for your savings. Um, let's just say, for example, there's a savings account that pays 1% interest. So you could hold $100 in your wallet, in which case, it doesn't earn you any interest. Or you could put that $100 in a savings account that earns you 1% interest, and after a year, you would have $101, right? So in that sense, by holding on to it, you're giving up that interest payment. So there is a cost to holding money. It's the opportunity cost, what you give up by holding it because of what you could do with it otherwise. Here's another good question that people sometimes ask: what backs money? Is there anything that backs it that sort of has real value that is underlying it? Is it gold or silver or maybe even the federal government? Well, ever since the 70s, our money is only backed by our confidence in it. And so it's actually a fiduciary currency. Um, there's nothing else that backs our currency. So if tomorrow all of a sudden no one had any confidence in the value of a dollar, it would basically be worthless. You couldn't trade it for gold. The government wouldn't give you any sort of payment for it in terms of any other asset. So pretty interesting, also kind of scary, right? It's totally dependent on the fact that we all have confidence that it has value. We're all in sort of cahoots. We all agree that it has value. If that somehow came to an end, dollars would be worthless.